Welcome to today's deep dive. Today we'll be looking back at this book from the late 90s
Yeah, late 90s.
called The Sovereign Individual.
Oh, yeah, I remember The Sovereign
I
Individual.
think it was 97 when it came out.
Yeah, 97.
So it's been a while.
It's been a while.
But it made some pretty bold predictions about the digital age. And we're going to see how those predictions have panned out over the last almost 30 years.
Yeah, it's fascinating how some of those predictions really did come true, and others, they had the general trend, right? But maybe the specifics weren't quite there.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it shows a real insight into how technology shapes society.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about this book is that they went beyond just predicting the internet.
Yeah.
Everybody was predicting the internet in the 90s.
Right. Everybody knew the internet was going to be big.
Right, but Davidson and Rees-Mogg, they went a step further and looked at how those technological changes would change power dynamics.
Yeah.
Individual freedom
Yeah.
and the idea of the nation state even.
Yeah. Yeah, they really got into those deeper implications, which is, I think, why the book still resonates today.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really struck me was their prediction about the decline of the nation state.
Right.
They argued that as globalization and the information economy sort of took off, that national borders would become less important. Individuals would be more autonomous.
Yeah, they talked about this idea of footloose individuals who could live and work anywhere thanks to technology.
Right, and we see that today with digital nomads.
Absolutely.
People who are location independent working online.
Yeah, it's like they were looking into a crystal ball and saw this trend emerging.
And they even got into some of the financial aspects too, right?
Yeah, they talked about the rise of tax havens
Right.
and how governments would struggle to collect taxes in this new world.
It's almost as if they foresaw something like cryptocurrency,
Oh, wow.
allowing individuals to move assets outside of traditional financial systems.
It's a really interesting parallel.
So when you look back at that prediction, how accurate do you think they were?
Well, obviously, nation states are still around.
Right, they haven't disappeared.
Not yet, at least.
Yeah.
But I do think their power has been challenged in ways that Davidson and Rees-Mogg anticipated.
How so?
Well, think about the rise of remote work,
Yeah.
the influence of global corporations, companies that operate across borders, the
Wow.
way information flows so freely across the internet.
Right.
All these things are eroding the traditional power of nation states.
So it's not necessarily a sudden collapse.
Right.
It's more of a gradual shift,
Yeah, it's a slow erosion of power
a slow erosion.
rather than a dramatic implosion.
And that makes me wonder, what does this mean for the average person?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah, could anyone become a sovereign individual?
Yeah.
Like the book suggests, using technology to kind of create a life outside of those traditional structures.
It's an intriguing idea, this idea of total detachment from the nation state.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's realistic for everyone,
Right.
but I think the book's core message is really powerful. Technology is giving individuals more control
Mm-hmm.
over their work, their finances, their lives in general.
It's almost like a call to action.
Yeah.
To really seize those
To
opportunities.
take control of your own destiny.
Yeah. And another big prediction they made was the rise of the information economy.
Oh, absolutely.
This idea that information and knowledge would become the most valuable commodities.
Right. Even more so than physical goods.
More than physical goods?
They really nailed that one.
They really did.
And again, they went beyond just saying the internet's gonna be big.
Right.
They actually described this concept of a cyber economy
Yeah, cyber economy.
where everything happens online.
Right.
Transaction services.
No geographical boundaries.
Exactly.
And they even talked about things like digital doctors,
Right.
cyber surgery,
Like telemedicine.
before telemedicine was even a thing.
Yeah, it's incredible how much of that has come true.
I mean, look at us now.
Yeah.
Online shopping,
Online education.
remote healthcare.
It's all part of that cyber economy they were talking about.
It's incredible how much of our lives really revolve around the digital realm these days.
Absolutely. It's become the dominant force in so many ways.
But what does that actually mean for us? Like, it's more than just buying stuff online, right?
Right. It's a fundamental shift in how we create and consume value.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about the subscription economy, for example,
Okay.
where you pay for access to information or services online,
Yeah.
or the rise of online education platforms
Right.
where you can learn anything from anywhere,
Mm.
or the increasing importance of digital intellectual property, like software copyrights and patents.
Right, so the things that are valuable are ideas and information.
Exactly.
How easy it is to spread them and share them and control them.
It's a whole new world of value creation.
And I think that raises an important question for all of us,
Yeah.
which is, how has this information age actually empowered you? What new opportunities has it opened up?
Yeah.
And what new challenges has it presented?
It's a question everyone needs to ask themselves, I think.
It is, and it brings us to another key prediction from the sovereign individual, which is the shift in power dynamics.
Right.
They argued that as technology empowered individuals,
Mm-hmm.
traditional power structures would start to be challenged.
Yeah, and we see that happening all around us.
Right.
I mean, think about the rise of social media,
Yeah.
online activism.
Citizen journalism.
Suddenly, individuals have this platform to share their views, challenge the status quo.
And we've seen how that can be really disruptive
Oh,
to
absolutely.
those traditional hierarchies.
It's given a voice to people who previously didn't have one.
Right, and made institutions accountable in ways they weren't before.
Precisely. It's a real shift in the balance of power.
But it's a complex landscape, too.
Yeah.
Because with that increased individual voice
Right.
comes the potential for misinformation and manipulation.
Yeah. Oh, that's the dark side of it, for sure.
So how do you think this shift in power dynamics is playing out in the real world?
Well, it's a really complex question.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that individuals have more power now than ever before to connect, to communicate, to mobilize.
Right.
But at the same time,
Yeah.
we're seeing new forms of surveillance,
Censorship.
algorithmic manipulation,
Right.
which can be just as powerful.
If not more so.
It's a constant tug of war
Yeah.
between liberation and control.
Between those forces.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic,
It is.
and it's playing out right before our eyes.
And how that unfolds is going to shape the future in really profound ways.
Absolutely. It's a defining struggle of our time.
And it's something we need to be really aware of
I agree.
as we navigate this digital world.
It's crucial to be informed and engaged
And to think critically.
about the forces at play.
And to use our own power wisely.
Exactly. That's the key to navigating this new world. It really is a fascinating paradox, isn't it? All this potential for empowerment, but also these new challenges we're facing.
Yeah, it's like this double-edged sword.
And it brings us to another key idea from the sovereign individual, this idea of adaptation. Davidson and Rees-Mogg really stress that those who could adapt to the rapid changes of the digital world would thrive,
Right.
while those who clung to the old ways would get left behind.
It's almost like a Darwinian principle for the digital age, right?
Exactly. Survival of the fittest in the digital landscape.
And it feels more relevant than ever today.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we're constantly bombarded with new technologies, new platforms, new ways of doing things.
It's a never-ending cycle of change.
It can be overwhelming, to be honest.
I know, it can be hard to keep up.
Yeah, and authors weren't just talking about adapting to technology itself, right?
Right.
It was more about developing these new skills and ways of thinking.
Yeah, they talked about the need for intellectual flexibility,
Right.
lifelong learning.
Being able to solve problems in new ways.
Exactly. It's not just about keeping up with the gadgets. It's about having a mindset that embraces change.
Yeah, it's about seeing the opportunity in disruption.
That's a great way to put it.
But, even with the best intentions,
Yeah.
predicting the future is hard.
It's impossible to get it all right.
So did the sovereign individual get everything right?
Well, no one can predict the future perfectly,
Right.
but I think they got a lot right.
Mm.
There were definitely some areas where their predictions maybe haven't quite materialized the way they thought they would.
Like what?
Well, for example, they predicted a much more rapid decline of the nation state
Okay.
than what we've actually seen.
Right. Nation states are still very powerful.
Yeah, they're still major players on the world stage.
Yeah.
And while their power is being challenged,
Mhm.
they're also adapting to the digital age.
Right. They're using technology too.
Exactly. They're using technology to enhance their capabilities to control information.
To exert their influence in new ways.
Yeah, it's a constant evolution.
So it's more of a complex dance.
Yeah.
Between individual empowerment and the evolving strategies of nation states.
It's a push and pull, a balancing act.
And each side's trying to leverage technology to their advantage.
Precisely.
Mm.
It's a fascinating interplay of forces.
And I think they also might have underestimated
Yeah.
the enduring power of these collective identities.
That's a good point.
Like nationalism, for example.
Nationalism, religious affiliations, cultural identities.
Right.
These group affiliations remain very powerful.
Mm-mm.
They provide people with a sense of belonging,
Yeah, shared identity.
a sense of purpose,
Right.
which can be hard to replicate in the digital sphere.
Right. It's interesting to think about how those forces might play out in the future.
Yeah.
Will digital communities and online identities eventually replace those traditional allegiances?
Mm.
Or will we see a resurgence of those traditional identities
Right.
as people seek stability and certainty in this rapidly changing world?
It's a fascinating question. And I don't think anyone has a definitive answer.
Right.
It's possible we'll see a combination of both trends,
Okay.
the rise of new fluid digital communities alongside this persistent, maybe even intensified attachment to those traditional group identities.
So a world that's both increasingly fragmented
Uh-huh.
and increasingly interconnected.
That's a great way to put it. It's a paradox.
It's a very complex picture.
It is, and it really highlights the need for nuanced thinking,
Yeah.
for being able to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously
Right.
and for embracing complexity rather than seeking those simple answers.
Yeah, and it makes me think about something else that struck me in the sovereign individual,
Okay.
which was their emphasis on the power of ideas.
Ah, yes.
They argued that the digital age would become this battleground for these competing visions of the future.
That's right. They saw this coming clash of ideologies.
And hasn't that happened?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about the rise of these new social movements, the debates around online privacy and censorship,
Right.
the emergence of decentralized technologies like blockchain.
All of these are examples of that battle of ideas playing out.
It feels like it's in full swing.
It is. It's happening all around us.
And that brings us to a really crucial question for all of us.
Which is,
What ideas are going to shape the future? What values and principles are going to guide our choices and actions as we navigate this increasingly complex digital landscape?
that's the question we all need to be asking ourselves.
Almost like a call to conscious participation.
Right.
To not just be passive consumers of technology,
Mhm.
but to actively engage in shaping the world we want to live in.
To be architects of our own future.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of shaping the future,
Yeah.
there was one prediction in The Sovereign Individual that I found really intriguing, or maybe a little out there.
Which one was that?
The death of politics.
Ah, yes, that was a bold prediction.
They argued that as the information economy took hold, traditional politics would become less relevant, eventually withering away altogether.
They envisioned a world where market forces would largely replace political decision-making,
Okay.
and individuals would have much more direct control over their lives.
I'll admit that one seems a little far-fetched.
Yeah.
I mean, politics is still a major force in the world, right?
You're right. Politics isn't dead.
Right.
But I do think they were onto something important.
Okay. What do you mean?
Well, we're seeing this growing disillusionment with traditional political systems in many parts of the world,
Right.
declining voter turnout, and a rise in these alternative forms of political engagement,
Like what?
like online activism,
Okay.
grassroots movements.
Right. So people are engaging, but maybe not through those traditional channels.
Exactly. It's a shift in how people are participating in the political process.
So maybe it's not the death of politics,
Right.
but a transformation of politics.
Yeah, I think that's a better way to put it.
A shift from those old hierarchical models of representative democracy to something new, something more aligned with the decentralized nature of the digital age.
It's a possibility.
And that actually connects with another prediction from the book,
Which is,
the emergence of these new forms of governance.
right. They talked about how these digital communities might develop their own systems of governance.
Their own rules, their own ways of resolving disputes.
Yeah, it's almost like these digital micronations.
And we are seeing hints of that already, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the way online communities moderate themselves, the rise of these decentralized autonomous organizations,
Right.
the experimentation with new forms of digital democracy.
It's all pointing in that direction.
It's like we're witnessing the early stages of this massive political experiment,
Yeah, it's unfolding right before our eyes.
playing out in real time across the digital landscape.
And the stakes are incredibly high.
Right.
The choices we make today, the systems we build, the values we prioritize, they're going to have a profound impact on the future of individual freedom, social cohesion, global governance.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting.
I agree. It's a time of both great opportunity and great uncertainty,
This sense that we're all participating in shaping the future.
whether we realize it or not.
And that brings us back to the core message of The Sovereign Individual, right? The importance of awareness, critical thinking,
Right.
and this willingness to adapt and evolve as the digital world continues to change around us.
Those are the essential skills for navigating this new world.
So it's not just about predicting the future.
Right.
It's about creating the future.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of our own destiny.
And that brings us back to you, dear listener.
Yeah.
What do you think the future holds?
Hmm.
What role will you play in shaping it?
What opportunities will you seize?
What challenges will you face?
Those are the questions we all need to grapple with.
As we navigate these uncharted waters of the digital age.
And as we wrap up our deep dive into the sovereign individual, I want to leave you with one final thought. It's amazing, isn't it, how a book this old can still feel so relevant?
Yeah, it really makes you think about how much has changed and how much hasn't.
And how these core trends just keep playing out in new and unexpected ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is a testament to the author's insight, I think.
Definitely. They had their finger on the pulse of something big.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's fitting to circle back to the book's title, The Sovereign Individual.
Right.
It's a powerful concept, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
To be a sovereign individual in the digital age. Is it about total independence, or is it more about like taking ownership of your choices, shaping your own destiny?
I think that's the key question, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily about complete detachment from society or the nation state.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing the power and agency that technology gives us.
Okay.
It's about being informed, engaged, intentional about how we use these tools, about shaping the digital world rather than just letting it shape us.
So it's about empowerment, but also responsibility.
Absolutely.
Understanding the implications of our choices in this interconnected world.
Right, because everything we do online has ripple effects.
It does, and I think that's where the book's message is most relevant today.
Yeah, I agree.
We're all navigating this uncharted territory.
There's no roadmap.
There's no single right way to be a sovereign individual.
Exactly, you have to find your own path.
But I think by embracing those values of adaptability, critical thinking, conscious participation, we can each contribute to building a future that aligns with our values.
Right. It's about creating the world we want to live in.
Yeah. So in a way, The Sovereign Individual isn't just a book of predictions.
Oh.
It's a call to action.
It's an invitation to step into our own power.
And shape the digital future we want to see.
Precisely.
And that brings us to our final thought for you, dear listener.
If The Sovereign Individual were being written today, what new predictions might it include?
What emerging trends are shaping your future?
How will you leverage the power of the digital age
to create a life of greater freedom, purpose, impact?
Those are the questions we all need to be asking ourselves.
And as we conclude our deep dive, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into these ideas that are shaping our world.
Stay curious.
Until next time, be well and stay curious.